NHS's entire gender treatment model for children is demolished in bombshell report. Teens suffered irreversible changes based on remarkably weak evidence. Toxic debate taints key issues, and schools are also blasted by eminent doctor. Well, we never saw this staggeringly drunken over the hill 40 miles away, did we? This is what normal people have been talking about since this whole debate began years ago, and the real problem is anybody who dissents from the insane woke psychos that run the world is instantly labelled a far-right fascist or a phobe or an ist, when in actual fact most people are reasonable centrist types who look at both sides of this argument, and that's what I've been saying for years. And it's definitely what the likes of Posey Parker and J.K. Rowling and everybody else that was formerly on the left and has since been accused of being a fascist. It's completely absurd on the face of it. Dare I say, I would even class myself as pro-LGBT, in that I've always been a reasonable chap, and I think the state should be as small as possible. So I've always said, if two blokes want to lube themselves up and fling themselves around the living room all night, ripped to the tits on wobbly eggs, that's up to them. Knock yourselves out, lads. And the T's, specifically, I am all for any individual living their life as they see fit to wring as much happiness from it as they can without any interference from people that have nothing to do with them. You live your life as best you see fit. The only caveat being that 8-year-olds still believe in magic and Santa Claus and Spider-Man, and they shouldn't be allowed to think that it's a good idea to lop the knackersack off just because a far-left ideologue told them it was a good idea. If you think that's hateful, you're a maniac, and I'm going to tell you why. Oh yeah, and I'll also cover this story as well, so stay tuned. This story is from the Daily Mail. Dr. Cass was appointed to lead the review into identity services for youths in 2020. The report concludes that NHS treatment was based on remarkably weak evidence, and you can read everything you need to know about the sweeping 400-page Cass report. Well, fortunately, I'm not going to make you read the 400-page Cass report. I'm going to sum up all the good bits. But can I just take a second? I take no pleasure in gloating. I believe I speak for 90% of the country when I say that everybody has been saying this all along, and as usual, when you just have rule by diktat from the very top and they don't debate anything, they've foisted this on children and ruined thousands of lives because they stick their fingers in their ears and go la 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 when normal people say, hang on a sec, maybe that 10-year-old girl was just a bit of a tomboy and she was going to grow up to be a perfectly happy, married young woman with children, and instead she's got ovaries like sun-dried tomatoes, tits like fried eggs, and a hairy back, because you lunatics thought it was a good idea to experiment on children like bastard Frankenstein. It's a national, nay, international scandal. And I'm just glad that 4 years ago, or however long I've been doing this, I put myself out there in a public place saying, I'm against the mutilation of children because I'm not Fred West. Yeah, and apparently that was controversial. And might I just throw in the governments, the NGOs, the lawyers, the judges, and the lamentable villains that run Silicon Valley as a whole all helped this happen. So if you're one of the tens of thousands of kids who grow up to be in your mid-20s and realise, I was misled. I shouldn't have been told I was a man because I was a slightly tomboyish 11-year-old girl, and now I've ruined my life and I've got a chin like Desperate Dan. Remember who to blame. Remember, and it wasn't people like me or J.K. Rowling or Rosie Duffield or anybody else who spoke out against it. It was a tiny cabal of deranged sociopaths who hate humanity, which is why they do this stuff on purpose. Oh yeah, and try and make it illegal to discuss it, like the worst type of villain from a dystopian fantasy novel. Anyway, rant over, let's read the story. Children given NHS treatment have been set on a path of irreversible change despite scant medical data, a report has concluded. The NHS gender identity services for children and young people have been based on remarkably weak evidence. This is an independent review by leading paediatrician Dr. Hilary Cass. Her study, commissioned nearly 4 years ago, makes 32 recommendations to overhaul NHS services to improve the care that children receive. Poison dwarf Prime Minister Rishi Sunak welcomed the report and called for extreme caution in treating youngsters in the future, despite the fact he will obviously ignore it all and continue letting the far left dictate terms for the rest of his mercifully short premiership. Dr. Cass said the toxicity of the debate over this care was exceptional and revealed she was singled out for criticism during her work. What? Singled out by violent lefties who get treated with kid clubs by the police? Shoot, I'm not having that. Surely they wouldn't have the confidence to just attack people constantly, safe in the knowledge that they're never going to get prosecuted because the police service in the UK is an absolute joke and they only arrest you if you've got the wrong opinions, and those wrong opinions obviously being anything that Jeremy Corbyn doesn't like. The report said there was a lack of high-quality research on the effects of giving children puberty blockers and hormones, and recommended the NHS establish its own research programme. Long waiting lists were said to have driven trans kids into the arms of private clinics, with GPs pressurised to prescribe. Dr. Cass laid the groundwork for schools to introduce clearer guidance when dealing with them, ending the exclusion of parents. The creation of separate services for those wanting to detransition. A follow-through service for 17 to 25-year-olds to protect teenagers from falling off a cliff edge. And you know what? I don't want to read any more of it, because my rage boner will punch holes in my desk again, and I'm going through desks like socks. Do you know what really infuriated me about all of this? All of it is common dog. Every bit of it. All of the bullet points. Anyone can see them 50 miles away. They stand out like a diplodocus in a yellow shell suit. A lack of quality research on the effects of giving children puberty blockers. You could ask a random middle-aged lady who works in the corn factory, do you think it's a good idea to give little kids loads of puberty blockers? And she'd say, take your head for a shit, son. You don't have to be a visionary genius to know this stuff, which is what I've always said. It's what I said about Brexit and Trump and everything else. Trust the general public. Normal people are streetwise, they've got common sense, and they're always right about everything. It's only the far left, the Guardian readers and the journalists on the BBC. No, I've got a degree from Cambridge, so I'll tell you what to do. You can smoke my hat, fella. That's what you can do. Trust the public. Not only is it morally right, because it's actually democratic, but it's logically right because the elites that run the world are always wrong on everything all of the time. My nana had very little education, but she'd have pointed every one of these bullets out if you just asked her a random series of questions while she was drinking gin in the local social club. NHS waiting lists. What? You mean it's a bad idea to let in millions of people that have never ever paid into the NHS? You know, the system that used to work perfectly in the 1980s when everybody who used it had paid into it for a while, and the doctor used to turn up at your house within 3 hours of phoning them. Yes, that isn't a myth, young people. That used to happen. The Bootneck's granny used to ring the doctor when he was 8 and he was feeling a bit under the weather, and 4 hours later our local doctor, a fat ginger bloke, was in my front room taking my temperature and offering sage advice. That used to be a thing. Jesus wept. I can't believe this stuff. Do you need some genius with an expensive education to spend 4 years looking into it to come to these conclusions that your local pisshead could come to? Ask a bastard bus driver, he'll tell you all this stuff. Christ on a bike. Ending the exclusion of parents. Who thought that was a good idea? No. Mum and Dad don't know best. You know who knows best? Faceless, stranger, mentally ill social worker who only ever reads The Guardian and thinks you should lock people up for polite disagreement. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Jesus. Anyway, I'm getting raged, so I'll leave this for you to read. Read it yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think any of this stuff, I'll leave a link in the description. If you think any of this stuff is sage or ingenious, I think you've got a head full of fresh air. Or worse. So let me know what you think. I'm sure everybody watching this is not surprised and has been saying all of this stuff for years. It's ludicrous. The whole thing's a farce. What a waste of money. Common sense clearly is not so common. Anyway, that's me. That's just my opinion. I'm sure those that run this godforsaken platform think what I've just said is basically genocide, isn't it? Basically. Yeah, okay, it might be pro-LGBT for anyone over the age of 18, but it's basically the same thing as mass murdering 8 million people. Course it is. Yeah, cheers, Owen Jones. Anyway, I'm finished. Does me head in. Read that. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. God, it would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. But there you go. Toodle pip. Cheers.